All right, guys. Looks like we are live. Of course, it takes a minute for this to get booted up everywhere, Rumble particularly, but we'll check on that. And today on All Minus One, we are going to talk about the world before time and the occultic consciousness here on, the good old TV Turkey Tuesday stream right after the intro. All right, welcome. This is All Minus One, and my name is Bill. Hope you all are having a great day. Little dreary around here, but it's good. We needed some rain. Um, so today's the laid back show, right? And I was talking about some things on Sunday about these epochs or ages that we analyze the world through. And it seems to be true. It seems to be right. It seems to be real because no matter what perspective we look at the world from, as a philosopher, as a historian, anthropologist, um, as a mystic, religious folks, whatever, there is this ingrained into all of uh, all of these belief systems, right? All of these views, all of these systems of studying. Hey, Holly, happy Tuesday to you. Actually, you know what? Before I get too far down into the rabbit hole, I'm going to pause myself here and remind everyone to go subscribe over on Rumble because if my channel gets yeeted or I get struck and I can't stream for 2 weeks, the streams are going to go on. I'm going to keep streaming because I want to do this, and I'm just not playing games with them anymore. And if I get 2 strikes, then I have to wait till at least one of them goes away. Or if I get a magical third strike, YouTube will delete the channel forever, which will be quite sad. But I will still be streaming on Rumble and on Entropy and on DLive. And links are in the descriptions, of course, and you can also donate there. So back to what I was saying. We have a lot of various perspectives in analyzing the world and the reality that we live in, and they all have some things in common. And that one thing, particularly I'm speaking to, is the cycles of the world. And it seems more and more evident that the current belief systems, the scientific belief systems of today, are actually wrong on most accounts. And that's because of hubris. It's because of their worship of the external and all of that, things I talked about pretty heavily on Sunday. But this is it's quite interesting because it's also echoed in the occult, and a lot of people don't understand the occult and the mystery religion. So I'm going to kind of bring these things together. And again, this relates back to what I was talking about on Sunday. If you didn't see that stream, the siesta stream, I thought it was pretty good, and I'm going to pick up part 2 next Sunday. So Holly subbed on Rumble. Yeah, go sub to Holly's channel over there too. I'll put that in the description, or sorry, in the chat, Holly. Give me a second. Guys, go check out Holly's channel on YouTube and Rumble, Holly Midlife. Holly and I are friends, have been friends for, I guess, over a year now, and she's a darling lady, and we appreciate her. She's one of our based Canadians. She, for a while there, was like my internet wife. So currently I'm internet single, though. Okay, guys, so I'm going to play this little video from Graham Hancock over on the YouTubes, and he's going to far better and more concisely explain this. Let me know how the volume is going on this thing. Hey, Spook, what's up?
Even in 1995, the notion of a lost civilization was not a new idea. That notion has been around for a very long time. We can take that notion actually back thousands and thousands of years. The most famous example is Plato, the Greek philosopher Plato, who gave us the story of Atlantis from Plato comes the story of Atlantis, a great advanced civilization which had navigating and seafaring skills, which could explore the world, which built gigantic buildings, which had advanced knowledge in every area, which was prosperous and powerful. But then Plato says that corruption crept into this society, that it became cruel and avaricious, it became greedy, it began to impose its power around the world.
It's all right, Spook. I was wondering what was up with you, but I don't expect everyone to catch every single show every time, and especially I go on. I talk about a lot of stuff, and I talk about deep things often. So, is what it is. But I appreciate you guys showing up. It's definitely encouraging to do this when there's actually other people listening versus when I first started, just pre-recorded everything. It makes it a little bit more real.
And he has a very ringing phrase. He said that Atlantis ceased to wear its prosperity with moderation. And the suggestion is that it's this hubris, this conceit of Atlantis, that it had become so sure of itself that somehow the universe struck it down, and we have the cataclysm of flood and disaster, and that Atlantis is submerged beneath the waves. Now,
so he's going to talk about how this was, how this is looked at as just some sort of moral lesson or whatever. But what's really interesting is that nearly all civilizations that I'm aware of have an origin story that involves a massive cataclysmic flood. It's quite strange that would reoccur around the world in all these different primitive style societies, at least primitive by our standards. And the story of Atlantis is the story of today as well, in that the kings and rulers of the earth believe hubristically in their technocracy, and they're detached from the people. They become evil. See, before that happened in Atlantis, it was a paradise. It was a great societal. It was the pinnacle of their society of sorts, right? It was a great societal achievement, and that culminated in some sort of technology that was beyond the experience of the Greeks in the day that Plato relays this to, and maybe even beyond our own. And of course, it could be fantasy, but evidence seems to be pointing to some sort of reality to the story, right? And to Holly's point here, global warming totally took Atlantis out, right? Exactly, Holly. We're living that again today, right? Where the technocratic rulers, they see the world about ready to die, that it's getting too hot. Interestingly, the scriptures do say that the world will be renewed in fire this time, not by water. But we do know that there were asteroidal impacts in the past and other things as well. The Younger Dryas catastrophe, or as Dr. Robert Schoch mentions, the solar dark age that occurred afterward. These are all pointing to the biblical scriptures, and what this is, in my belief, is an actual resetting of the reality at the time. Now, the scriptures that I hold to, I believe to be the truth and the telling of these things, right? And that's because of certain events have actually unfolded and occurred, so they end up proving themselves. But aside from that, again, this is a common source style story. And so are all of the occultic and religious beliefs, which is why in the latter half of this video, we'll talk about occult stuff. And I'll show you how it ties in together too with a certain man named Manly P. Hall, a certain book he wrote. But he's not the only one that had this belief either. So we'll get to that though in a bit.
Of course, the view of historians and academics is that Plato's story is just made up. He just made it up to make some political or philosophical point. But this cannot be so. That view can't be right. I was very suspicious of that view the first time I heard it from a mainstream historian. Why are they saying that Plato made this up? Plato repeatedly states that it is a true story. And as we look into it further, we find something else, that Plato puts a date on the destruction of Atlantis. He says Atlantis was submerged beneath the waves in a huge global cataclysm 9,000 years before the time of Solon. We know Solon, we know who he was. Solon was a famous Greek lawmaker. He was an ancestor of Plato, as a matter of fact, about 200 years before Plato. And around 600 BC, Solon, the great Greek lawmaker, made a visit to Egypt. And in Egypt, the priests at a temple of Sais in the Delta told him the story of Atlantis. And they said that it was written on the walls of the temple. And he said, when did this happen? When was this great civilization destroyed? And they said 9,000 years ago. And that was in 600 BC. So that's 9,600 BC in our calendar. That's 11,600 years ago. Plato is telling us a great civilization was destroyed in a global cataclysm of flood 11,600 years ago. He's laughed at by all academics and historians. But then geology comes along, and lo and behold, what do we find? 11,600 years ago is a truly cataclysmic episode in geological history. It's called Meltwater Pulse 1b. We have a massive rise in sea level as the ice sheets on North America and Northern Europe just crumble and collapse into the ocean. If Plato made the whole thing up, he was just astonishingly on the money with the latest geology. And I think that we really have to reconsider our attitudes to these stories that have come down to us from the past. Academics have been too quick to dismiss them.
And you can watch the clip with, oh, now his name escapes me, but Randall Carlson and Grant Hancock debating the professional skeptic guy that I can't think of his name right now, but you probably know who I'm talking about. And if you don't, chat, I mean, you just go look that up. It's a Joe Rogan episode, and Michael Shermer, that's who it is. And he just dismisses all these kind of things. And it's like, that is not an intelligent person. That's a person who's gatekeeping knowledge. And what he's referring to then is what he does is he defers to authorities, which is a logical fallacy. You can accept in a debate some authorities' truth or whatever, but that has to be established. Generally, though, you want to make arguments without appealing to actual authorities, right? And that's all that he has. And it doesn't matter, because if all of the authorities are wrong, which they often are, need I remind you that there have been, I don't know, what is it, 41 predictions or something like that since 1969 about the Earth ending in either an ice age or by global warming. I mean, it doesn't seem to make good sense that the experts continually get their predictions wrong, but they can't say anything about it. They can't say, that no, we weren't wrong. They're just like, we didn't quite have this amount of data or that, but it's still going to happen, right? I mean, what do you say when you're proven wrong continuously? 40 some odd times over several decades. Like, why would you listen to that person about anything? And of course, then there's all the hypocrisy of people, who preach to you, yet they fly around on their planes and all that good stuff. Or, the reality is they'll have their things. You should go check out Styx's video today on World War III. The real World War III is against the globalists. And yeah, exactly. That's the war that we're in. And right now it's cold with some hot action, but that is the war. And he mentions this, though. He talks about the elitists, maybe it was another video he did, but I think it was in that one, and the climate activists, and how the people that are the biggest speakers for these things, they don't really actually do anything about it. It's all fake, right? So, um, we have that. We have recently they turned on CERN. There's talks. People are asking, can we finally get rid of the stupid ideas of dark matter and dark energy? You literally just have this pigeonholed idea holding up your entire standard model of physics that doesn't work. You can't figure it out. You can't see it or describe it. They say it's invisible and undetectable to us. So it's God, right? I mean, and then they just go with other mathematical theories and say, well, this proves that that happens. Well, maybe your theory of how things exist has been disproven. They can't let go of it. They can't let go of it. And part of it is their ego and their, but part of it is because it's their life's work, and everyone buys into it. And when everyone buys into the thing, right, you become synthesized to the thing. Culture shapes people's minds more than people shape their own mind. They want to fit in. They want to be seen as normal. And when you're in the middle of the herd and you have that, like, that bell curve, that central point of the IQ. By the way, women collect around that the most. Women have the most narrow scopes of IQs. And it's usually around that 115 to 120 range-ish. And some are smarter and whatever. Men have more extremes, way more extremes. Or what I should say is there are more men who are on the extreme ends of the IQ and more women in the inner boundaries. And that should tell you something about the culture as well, because we know as herd animals, right? It's always in the middle where you want to be the safest. The fringes are not safe. The fringes are not safe, my friends. It's dangerous territory. You may be very gifted, maybe, very lucky to have a higher IQ, but then there's all the bad things that come with that as well, just like all the things that come with having a low IQ. It's best to be middle of the herd for, survival reasons, right? So, anyways, this culture perpetuates itself. We know this, we know that. We're man, and part of this is the death of God. If there is no God, there's no. If consciousness isn't the foundations of the world, and which it is, but if it wasn't, then it, then everything exterior and material would matter most. And in a way, you can then say, well, we can shape it, and we can shape the external to our liking and be our own gods, right? We can control everything. And that even includes the narratives. Controlling what the narratives are, controlling what information is out there, controlling what people see, controlling what they think, and literally then becoming gods as they shape the culture and the narrative and the science and the history and whatever else, right?
Too quick to say, oh, we've figured the whole story out. There's no mystery there. Maybe there's a huge mystery there. Maybe we should listen to these clues and hints from the past that speak of a great civilization. So when I published Fingerprints of the Gods in 1995, it was at the end of a long lineage going back to Plato and before. And of course, famously, Ignatius Donnelly in the 1900s, the early 1900s and late 1800s, wrote Atlantis, the Antediluvian World, which was a huge investigation of Atlantis. So this subject has been tackled again and again and again. And again, mainstream academia has said, no, it's impossible. There could be no lost civilization. We know everything about the past, and it's been dismissed. But the problem is that new evidence keeps coming out, which can't be explained by the existing historical model. New evidence that just doesn't fit the picture. And my sense is that this evidence is now becoming overwhelming, and that we're reaching a tipping point. Maybe not this year, maybe not next year. But within our lifetimes, we are going to see a completely new understanding of the past, a radical revisioning of the past, and therefore of our place in the world as well.
So here again is this idea, right, that there's going to be some sort of revolutionary way forward, some giant change in humankind and their thinking. Now he's only talking about this discovery and deciding that well, there was an actual advanced civilization long before hunter gatherers were the norm, and society built itself up in Mesopotamia, right? But I don't know if this will become mainstream accepted, but it does point to the idea that there is this burgeoning thing coming out, and you could say our consciousness as human beings, and it's coming forward. And James Lindsay's saying it could be he believes it's going to be a second enlightenment, a freedom of information, doing away with the gatekeepers like we did away with the kings in the past, that kind of thing. I have been a little bit more pessimistic. I'm actually not pessimistic about it because the Lord returning is a joyous time. But um, eh, for the fate of others, it's a little pessimistic to me. But I would love to be wrong about the time that I'm living in. Um, and then there's the New Age and the occultist and their belief of the age of Aquarius. And again, we're going to tie that back in here in a little bit. We're going to show some videos about that. What they actually, you're going to hear from people who were formerly in the occult and in certain occultic organizations. And I actually had some books I meant to bring up here. So I guess I'll take a minute here, hit play, and go get those. So be right back.
We talked at the beginning of this discussion about Plato's Atlantis story and how he said that Atlantis went down 11,600 years ago. That's the date of the foundation of Göbekli Tepe. Very set, very clear, absolutely founded 11,600 years ago, exactly the date that Plato gives for the ending of Atlantis. And Göbekli Tepe doesn't fit. It just comes out of nowhere, out of nowhere. We understand a site like Stonehenge. Makes perfect sense. About 4,500 years old, Stonehenge. We know that it was centered in an agricultural community which generated surpluses. Those surpluses allowed labor to be freed. You could fund people to become astronomers or architects or engineers. They didn't need to be producing all the time. So we can understand the social and economic context in which a huge megalithic site like Stonehenge emerged. Go to Göbekli Tepe, you're 7,000 years earlier. The entire area prior to the appearance of Göbekli Tepe is inhabited only by hunter-gatherers. There's no agriculture whatsoever. They haven't built anything ever. And then suddenly, without any background or any preparation, appears this huge megalithic site, which is incredibly sophisticated. Turns out, because a large part of it's still under the ground, seen with ground-penetrating radar, that the whole site is actually 50 times bigger than Stonehenge and 7,000 years older. So how do we account for this? Did a group of hunter-gatherers in Turkey wake up one morning, magically inspired, that they suddenly knew how to cut and quarry stone, move blocks weighing in some cases up to 50 tons?
Now, one explanation, of course, is aliens. But actually, that from a biblical perspective would not be wrong, and especially a first, second, or third century biblical perspective, 100%, because that's what the fallen ones are. They're alien. They're foreign to this world, to the earth. The earth was made for human beings. Another explanation could be, again, in that kind of perspective, is that man actually was stronger. The longer we've moved away from Adam, the weaker we've become. The more the genetic code has been destroyed, manipulated, mutated, and again, that's it's an interesting idea because I mentioned on Sunday, if you look at the Russian silver fox experiment, if you breed for certain characteristics, just purely having docile characteristics, eventually what you get with these foxes within a few generations is basically a little puppy dog. They get neonatal features. Their entire fur changes. They look like a completely different creature. I mean, they're still a little dog, right? That's what a fox is, but they become tame. And of course, we know this through animal husbandry. We can do this with uh, a lot of animals. And maybe some, not as much as others. It's hard to say, but I'm not an expert in that. But I know that this exists, and it would make sense that as man, over the course of the more ancient primordial generations that were uh, very much more brutish than we are today, that we've bred those poor characteristics out, but not fully, right? Because we still have people who have psychopathic tendencies. We still have people that have cluster B personality disorders. And it seems like that those things are very much on the rise. And of course, I posit that in the synthetic society that we're actually the synthetic society itself is creating that, and it's doing it purposefully as a means to cause chaos and to self-devour. Just like, I believe that right now it seems like that the supply chain shortage and the famines, due to Ukrainian war, or Dutch farmers about ready to be taken out, and all those kinds of things that are coming, they seem pretty engineered to me, you know, just a little bit, just a tidbit. But yeah, so and then perhaps, I gave you the angel's explanation. I gave you the men were much larger explanation, but and much more brutish. If you look at the ancient Sumerian texts, and this is something some Thursday in the future I'm going to talk about, if I can get a stream together this Thursday, or not this Thursday, because it's something else I want to talk about this Thursday, but next few Thursdays out, probably. We're going to talk about the origins of these belief systems going all the way back to Sumeria. And the god, which may very well have been, it probably was the god of Abram at the time, Sin, interestingly enough, the moon god, um, that he left and went to Israel, to he left his homeland, went to the promised land. He left, old Mesopotamia, and to went to the west. And in that process, and before that, there were several other gods that came down, and these gods it can be looked at similar to again, the biblical angels, or the story of the Watchers, or the Fallen One, or the Nephilim. They're very similar stories, and I think that all these things have roots. Now, again, you can debate if it's truth or not, if it's real, but it's definitely real, ingrained in our cultures across the world in a lot of ways, and our religious systems, um, and in our symbolic systems. So these people, again, they might have been stronger. There might have been other beings, right? The potential of aliens. But I would call them multidimensional beings that are that do not the physics of our world do not apply to them, right? They can pass through dimensions in ways that we cannot. And in any case, this is just me spitballing, me speculating, but that might seem to be the case. Or they had other greater technology. The interesting thing about the technology, though, is if they had really, oh, I meant to talk about the Sumerian thing. Sorry, guys. With that, they were actually created. The human beings in the Sumerian lore were created to be slaves. They were formed out of the mud of the earth to be slaves. And that's also telling too, as a perspective of, from angels and stuff. Like, I want to talk about this stuff on Thursdays, angels and demonology and all this cool stuff. It's really fascinating to me. In fact, so you guys know I'm writing the Synthetic Society, and that's like, I got like 150 pages handwritten right now. Again, need to get it organized, and it'll fill out some more, and then I'm going to kind of whittle it down, because I don't want it to be a voluminous book, and I want it to be succinct and actually sharp and to the point. But after that, I'm going to come out with this book called The Eight-Dimensional Man, which is going to be like a companion book. And then going to finally get my novel done. And I actually have the ending of it. These aren't all going to be released at the same time. And of course, that's going to be a 3-book series I'm going to do. And then after that, I think I'm going to write stories. I'd like to write a fantasy story in the antediluvian world. It would be really, I don't know if there's any really established, really good fiction out there on that stuff. It'd be really cool to do that. So, I mean, it's me. I got to create things, guys. I'm an artist. It's been too long since, I was dead inside for too long, and now I'm full of life. So, anyways, I'll play this video.
Create gigantic stone circles in an area with no water, involving bringing a labor force and organizing that labor force and feeding and watering them, to create the world's first perfectly north-south aligned building, which involves accurate astronomy, to do all of that, and at the same time to invent agriculture. Because at the same moment that Göbekli Tepe pops up, suddenly agriculture appears in that same region of Turkey. It's obvious to me that that wasn't a group of hunter-gatherers who woke up one morning suddenly equipped with the skills. What we're looking at is a transfer of technology.
And this is a huge thing, because it seemed like all of a sudden civilization just comes out of nowhere. And it seems like agriculture just comes out of nowhere, right? That seems to be the evidence. And out of Africa's nonsense, the cradle of civilization is Mesopotamia, the Fertile Crescent. That seems to be where our roots lie, and we just seem to appear. You can make evolutionary arguments to me, but I don't buy them. They start talking about genetics, and they're like, oh, we have like 99% genetics of a chimpanzee or whatever. And it's like, or whatever it is, 98%, 97%, 90%. That's not actually true. When you look at encoding DNA, or what was once termed junk DNA, that's not true. It's much closer to like, maybe 60 or 70%. But, that's just because we are made out of similar materials. But we're not made out of the similar materials of a jellyfish, are we? No, because we are, we could be classified as mammals. Again, the scriptures explain this. Each was made in their kind. I've yet to really get a full understanding how, from a single cell organism, that somehow that the genetic code decided, well, somehow got manipulated, mutated beneficially, and then figured out some process that was external to it, that it didn't even have a sensor for it, and created its own like sensor. It's very magical thinking, evolution, when you start really getting down to the nuts and bolts of it. And again, you could say the same thing about me and my religion, but at least admit that your religion is really no different. People would be like, well, evolution brought us modern medicine and the theory of evolution, and it brought us like genetics and all this other stuff. And we're doing CRISPR now. Yeah, well, I don't know about that. And speaking of which, like, things to watch, guys, like, man, we had Kim Iverson does mRNA change your DNA, breaking down AP and Reuters fact checks over on Rising, The Hill. And that's something you should watch. In fact, let me see if I can get I'll throw it in the chat. There it is, chat. At least YouTube chat. I don't think I have anybody else live watching right now. So YouTube chat exclusive. But yeah, I mean, like, people don't understand the processes of epigenetics. In fact, epigenetics got swept under the rug very much so, because it can counter it can counteract the evolutionary the modern evolutionary thinking. Of course, there's not even that much. There's not much of a controversy, from what I understand, globally on how the processes of evolution work. That is that it's acceptable to have varying views over the standard model, but it seems like in the Western world, especially in the United States, it's like it's a very dead set thing, right? But anyways, let's watch the rest of this video. Got about 4 minutes left.
This was the survivors of a lost civilization. They already knew how to create megaliths. They already knew how to do agriculture. They settled amongst a hunter-gatherer people who they may have reached out to before. They settled amongst them and they created this project. And this project was to restart their civilization. It didn't quite work, but they got somewhere. They created this huge site. They invented agriculture. We are all the descendants of that. All of the agriculture in the world today began around Göbekli Tepe 11,600 years ago. First of all, it's important to understand that the earth changes that took place between 12,800 and 11,600 years ago were utterly cataclysmic, beyond all imagining. The science is now in, it's very clear. We had an interaction with the fragments of a very large comet.
Now, I just want to add something to this, to that time range in that site of Göbekli I can never say Göbekli Tepe. Anyways, in Turkey, you know that in Turkey is where the Ark of the Covenant was to have, or not the Ark of the Covenant, Noah's Ark was to have landed on the mountain. Just say it. And in the Sumerian legend, you have, of course, the Gilgamesh, and that's just again the flood story. But it's interesting because they always say that the Bible copies the Gilgamesh story, but if the Bible account was true, it would be older than that. So, but it's just it's interesting to think of these things, right? You know, no one takes you into, you don't get college courses on this stuff because, man, this might reaffirm some belief in God or something.
A giant comet, which originally may have been as much as 100 miles in diameter. It was drawn into the inner solar system about 20,000 years ago. These things come from very far away. They come from a place called the Oort cloud, which is almost light year away. It's so far away. It's so far away. A huge sphere of trillions of comets in the very outer solar system.
Spook God-guiding evolution could certainly be a thing, but I just don't think that. I don't see the transitional forms the way that they do, because when look, there's a lot of stuff that's happened. First off, everything's gotten smaller. Everything. People got smaller. Like we know that you know, we're dying and degrading. That's part of the curse in the book of Genesis, right? Is that we're given death. But not only that, but like we know animals are smaller. I watched this really cool thing on YouTube the other day about dragonflies. I didn't know this. Most animals, most predators only have about a 20 to maybe 30% success rate. Some of them higher, up to 50%. But for the most part, most animals, you know, have to try about 4 times before they can get their prey. A dragonfly has a nearly 100% success rate. They didn't fully qualify that, but they showed why it was so good at hunting, and it was because of how its wings operate. And they've been around forever. And they used to be dragonflies like this big, or bigger. But we also know that the kind of insects that live in the sea, if you would, right? The bugs, the sea bugs, they get bigger because of the amount of oxygen that they can get in and the through the water, and because of the pressure of the water, right? Whereas there's not as much pressure out here in the air, in our atmosphere, so the insects don't get as large. They do in hotter climates with a lot of humidity, but they don't in other areas. So we know the size of animals is dictated to some degree by air pressure and how much they can get in. And specifically, from what I understand, like the Brontosaurus, or any long-necked dinosaur, actually, if the air pressure wasn't higher in days past, then if the air wasn't more oxygenated and everything, uh, they would have not been able to breathe in our current atmospheric conditions. So, um, it seems to me like the Earth was much hotter, much more dense. There was a lot more oxygen around, and something cataclysmic happened. And of course, that's a lot of what a lot of creationists will teach you. I wouldn't really consider myself a creationist. I do believe things were created, but I think our understanding of that is like insanely simple. For instance, if time stretches with light speed, then anything God did in 7 days would be a stretch of time. Across the eon. So it may appear that way to us, that we're watching the expansion of space, which of light, and that's the regulator, which is really interesting because God is the light. And right, God made the universe. People don't understand in the first lines of Genesis, he made the universe in darkness. It says, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. It's the first act of creation. There was no light. And then he made light. That was the second act. So from darkness, he created light. How do you do that? And that's also, of course, a metaphor for consciousness. It's a lot of things. It's a lot of things. But God, the Bible says that God has that a year is to 1,000 days to the Lord, and 1,000 years is to a day. And of course, I believe that we're in like spheres and spirals are repeating in our universe, and of course, we're in with the microwave background radiation. We can see that our universe has a spherical shape, actually, and these are all things pointing to one, how God creates and how things are moving and spinning and turning, but also how he looks in on that. He can enter that as well, but it's not the pantheistic type of idea that God is the universe itself. God is the consciousness. No, I think God sits outside of that, and I know that because the scriptures say so. It says that he is holy, and you're like, okay, well, you have to understand that what that word means. It means he's separate. He sits separate. So a lot of stuff there, right? A lot of stuff there.
But disturbances, gravitational disturbances, can send comets out of those safe orbits, winging in towards the inner solar system. It happens from time to time. And the evidence now is that we got one of those, a big one, about 100 miles in diameter, about 20,000 years ago. It entered an orbit that crosses the orbit of the Earth. And for the next 8,000 years, nothing bad happened. They missed each other. But 12,800 years ago, at least 8 pieces of this large comet, some of them up to a mile in diameter, hit the Earth. 50 million square kilometers of the Earth's surface was devastated by this comet impact. Sea levels rose rapidly, and the Earth's climate plunged into a dreadful deep freeze that lasted 1,200 years. This event was of a scale, of a magnitude that is quite capable of having wiped out almost all traces of a former civilization. And that's why I think again about what Plato had to say. And I think also about our civilization, because we feel that we've got it all sorted out. We are very proud of our technology, and it is a stunning technology. There's no doubt about it. We're very proud of it. But we have not created a strong society. Those technologies work through interactions, through networks, through connections. Nobody has all the pieces of the puzzle. Everybody has a little bit of the puzzle, and we cooperate together, and we...
The interesting thing about that, Holly, is that that's kind of how the scriptures describe what happens, though, as well. And in the book of Daniel, that the mountain rises up out of the earth, and a giant meteor is shown out, and that meteor is Christ, and the mountain is also Christ. It's also representative of God and God's kingdom, because that's what a mountain is, symbolically. It's the place where the universe the heavens and the earth meet. So it's yeah, I don't know. It's all very deep and interesting stuff, and to some people it's all like woo woo, and it's like, oh, that's just a bunch of hogwash, and that's fine. I bet you'll be the same person in many a years and not have grown. Um, you know. Yeah, the ancient spook. To your point, the ancient Christians believe that the Earth was something like uh, 4,500 years old. But the interesting thing about that is they may not have had certain other knowledge. I believe that it's likely, and they calculate that back to the time of Adam. Um, it's likely they understood from this time period from Mesopotamia, but they didn't know uh, enough about the world before, right? So, like, there's a lot of speculations out there. Like, my belief in God isn't shaken by any sort of evidence that there was an existing world that was quite long before then, because numbers might not line up right. I think that those ancient people were working off of the same kind of numbers that Plato was for when Atlantis existed. That was like a known quantity of sorts, right? But not everyone would have known. It would have been in lore and myth for a lot of people. Remember, at the time, the Greeks were kind of the had reached their empire and kind of the height of a society, uh, and before that, you had the Babylonian times, and then the Medo-Persian times, and before that, you have like the Egyptian times, and that's where Plato supposedly got it from, right? And well, from Ceylon technically, but yeah. So I don't know. It's just all interesting things to think of. But even nations that are more disconnected, like even ancient China and stuff, which had a quite a vast civilization, um, still has similar stories, still has similar understandings of this. You could say that too, as well, Spook. That God can make it appear more than it is, but I think it's a matter of our conceptions of time as human beings, and God's explaining that we could say God created the earth, in 7 days and all that's in it. And for God that operates in ways that is far beyond our understanding, that probably was 7 days for him, you know. And that 7 day thing echoes all throughout the Bible. It's very important. What's more important is the eighth day, because that's the new day and the new man. And that's why Christians very early on started worshiping on Sunday. And there's a lot of people out there like Seventh Day Adventist types that believe that was a changing of things. It wasn't. They worship both Saturday and Sunday, and in fact, the Orthodox still do that. They have Vespers on Saturday, and on Sunday they have their morning service.
We pool our skills, and we've created this world. But if you were to have a massive cataclysmic event occurring, if, for example, we were to face another comet impact as we did 12,800 years ago, then all the fragile networks that tie our society together would fall apart. And I don't believe that our civilization would survive such a cataclysm. Human beings would definitely survive, but our civilization would not survive because, contrary to its surface appearances, it's actually very fragile and very easily broken. Those who would survive the cataclysm.
And we're seeing that now. I just want to look up the date of this. So this is from Fight Mediocrities, the channel, by the way. So this was uploaded in 2020, but it's hard to say if it was an older recording of Graham Hancock or not. But I mean, we're seeing how easy and how fragile our society is because it's been made a global society, right? But the people who would survive, they would be the simpler people. Maybe these people who would be people think were low IQ, but you know what? They have hell of a survival ability. But then because they were low IQ and they you know didn't understand much, they'd have to rediscover everything again, right?
Would be hunter gatherers, people like the Kalahari Bushmen or the hunter gatherers of the Amazon basin. They would hardly notice it, as a matter of fact. Hunter gatherers are in the business of survival in very difficult circumstances, and they would get through it. We would not. Very few people in modern Western technological society know how to survive at all. We have no survival skills whatsoever. Food supply into our cities is on a just-in-time basis, 2-3 days maximum food supply in a city. Then you have people starving. How rapidly and radically this civilization would fall apart faced by a gigantic cataclysm, it's almost impossible to describe. The people who would carry the human story forward would be the hunter-gatherers. And 10,000 years from now, their descendants might tell a story about how there had been a time when there was a great civilization on this earth. So advanced, its powers were almost miraculous. Do you know? They could send people to the moon. They could fly around the world. They could speak to each other on other sides of the planet.
And no one would believe them unless there was evidence left over on the earth. And there might not be if everything burned down and then trees grew up around it, and there's a great scene in Fight Club, the movie. It's kind of one of my favorite movies. It's hard to say I have a favorite movie, but I really like that one, and I really like the scene where Tyler makes Jack. The narrator doesn't have a name, but he's credited as Jack. But he makes him drive or let go of his wheel to get in a car wreck, and then he talks about how he would love to see a day where the skyscrapers were overtaken by vines, and there would be antelope hides drying on the cars and yada yada yada. So Tyler's really demented about completely destroying civilization, but it's also kind of a lovely idea because civilization is wicked and evil.
But something went wrong. They became cruel. They became arrogant. They began to impose their will on others. They ceased to wear their prosperity with moderation, and the universe struck them down. I think there's a message in the Atlantis story for our civilization. We should stop being so fucking arrogant and proud in our achievements. We should show some humility, and we should learn the lessons of the past.
I agree. No, we're not watching that. I agree very much, in fact. That was Fight Mediocrity, once again. And I wanted to talk to you a little bit about Robert Schoch and an incident that happened not too long ago, where a solar incident that created a mass amount of damage. Do the old screen share with this. It's a lot easier. A lot easier. So Robert Schoch talks about this stuff. He's a guy who basically discovered or believes the Sphinx is much older than it is for its erosion points. Let's see, that's bigly enough for you, isn't it? And this is his website, of course, but you can look him up, and he calls this the solar induced dark age. And the evidence of this is in these pictures I'll show you here in a bit, where the ions and whatever else from the radiation, whatever, was hitting the Earth, and it was creating images that looked like people or thunderous things, and then these are the pictures are similar to the pictures in certain sites, especially in South America. So, of course, you could look up this site I just want to show you, a few things. There's Gobekli Tepe again, and then the Great Sphinx he's putting in around the same time, and then the end of the Ice Age. And during that time period, of course, you can see is the solar-induced Dark Age, and then civilization, as we know it, began again suddenly. So that was a long time, a long period of time that we don't know about. And that might have been, like I was saying, that site, something like that, that might be kind of like, where Noah and all them started their civilization. They started all over again, you know? Um, so and yeah, he is a he graduated from Yale as a professor. He teaches at Princeton. Here's the erosion he was talking about, or he talks about, I should say. I was talking about it. But see, these carvings are quite intricate, quite nice. So these people had tools, but again, if they had super technology, right? Something where they could machine things or whatever, I would think there would be some evidence of that. And where did that go? It's quite interesting. But there he's talking about the orientation of the constellations, because those are very old as well. And that gives some evidence or some proofs to what time periods these things were built for certain significant religious reasons. Like again, we're supposed to be entering the age of Aquarius now, right? I'm telling you, it all comes back around, guys. It all comes back around. Yeah, they talk about Easter Island and the plasma connection and all this stuff. So these things from around the world, and these are the pictures I was talking about from all over the world. I don't know if there's any way. I don't know if I open it in another tab, it's going to get any better because it's kind of small looking. But these ones particularly, where they kind of look like men dancing. He talks about this on the Joe Rogan podcast a few years ago, and he has a PowerPoint presentation of it. So it makes a lot of sense. And then these people would carve these things in the ground, what they saw, and they probably would have thought that they were gods. Maybe that explains it all. Maybe we are just walking meat bags, just like the World Economic Forum would want us to believe. You so eat the bugs. Um, but yeah, all very cool, very interesting stuff. And then you guys have probably never heard of this, but a perfect solar superstorm, the 1859 Carrington event. In 1859, a massive solar flare spewed electrifying gas and subatomic particles toward Earth, wreaking havoc on telegraph networks. So let me bigly that a little. I don't know why Assam was at the bottom of the screen there. And Hitler? Everything's always got to be about Hitler, doesn't it? On the morning of September 1st, 1859, an amateur astronomer, Richard Carrington, ascended into a private laboratory attached, excuse me, guys, attached to his country estate outside of London after cranking open the dome's shutter to reveal the clear blue sky. He pointed his brass telescope toward the sun and began to sketch a cluster of enormous dark spots freckled that freckled its surface. Suddenly, Carrington spotted that what he described as two patches of uh, intensely bright and white light erupting from the sunspots. 5 minutes later, the fireballs vanished, but within hours, their impact would be felt across the globe. That night, telegraph communications around the world began to fail. Yeah, and of course, it goes on. This is this is a solar flare knocking out our entire power grid, folks. One really powerful solar flare, and it's quite possible. For the sake of time, I'm not going to stay there forever. But he also mentioned a book uh, Graham Hancock did by Ignatius Donnelly. You can find online. I love old books like this because I believe this was printed in the 1800s or whatever. There's a couple ways you can get it. Look here, Atlantis and the Antediluvian World. Yeah, published in 1882. Man, there's a great book I love by Hislop, Alexander Hislop, called The Two Babylons, and some of the information isn't quite accurate, but it's one of those old books, and man, it's a goodie. I like these books written back in the days, but he talks all about it and the mysteries of it and all of that stuff, but seems to coincide quite well with what was said. And of course, here is from uh, academia.edu. Same thing. Plato's History of Atlantis. The probabilities of Plato's stories. Was such a catastrophe possible? The testimony of the sea. The testimony of the flora and fauna. All that good stuff. Right? And I didn't have my copy of it here, but what you should really check out is this book that I mentioned to you on Sunday. I might have not called it, or excuse me, might have not have said the proper name for the book because I tend to forget names of things and get them mixed up. But you can find this PDF, "The Secret Destiny of America" by Manly P. Hall, and we're going to start talking about some occult stuff here, guys. We're in the second half of the show, and I'll bring that back up in a minute. I want you guys get a good look at this. Now, this is The Secret Teachings of All Ages. As you can see, I have some things tabbed up here, mostly in the beginning. Mind you, I have never gotten all the way through this book. It's a whopper. It's 400 or 500 some odd pages, and the reason why is because I have known a lot of this stuff. Again, listening to Bill Cooper's Mystery Babylon series, watching various documentaries over time, it starts to get repetitive, and unless you're really, really into the occult, it's a lot. But I do have stuff tapped up in here. It's got um, some artwork there, and of course, there's some symbolic meanings to all those things. Manly P. Hall was not a Freemason, but became an honorary 33rd degree, the highest level Freemason. And he knew much about them, as well as the Rosicrucians, which we're going to talk about here in a bit. And I have a Secret Destiny of America, but I don't know where it's at right now. Maybe it's out on loan because I do have that occur sometimes, and I also end up losing books that way. This is a really great book about learning occultic stuff and what they believe in their history of the world and their origins, and going all the way back to the garden. In fact, but what I want to do before we start talking about the occult is I want to give you guys some things that I think you should check out, because it's going to, again, tie the it's going to kind of tie the show together with some things, but I don't think I have enough time to fully go into the to watch all these videos and stuff. But just interesting thoughts again, where I'm going with my thinking, um, as I'm like literally developing a philosophy, not intentionally meaning to, but I actually kind of am. Um, I already told you about the old Kim Iverson one, but we got to do a few others real quick. Let me get the screen shares going. You guys enjoying the stream? Bags of mostly water. I hope you're liking this kind of stuff. I am fascinated by this stuff. Just absolutely fascinated. This is why I like, quite frankly, so much, because he talks about this kind of stuff all the time. Gets lots of cool guests on. Maybe one day I'll have that kind of pool. We'll see. But this is amazing. So this is a talk from Chris Fields, who's a scientist, of course, and he talks about how we calculate the size of the universe, all the matter that's in it, yada yada yada. Um, again, it's their best guess or guesses. I still think it's a lot of guesswork, but he goes through that. Goes through the basics of like quantum mechanics, very very basic stuff, actually, guys. And then he goes on to tell how we can actually model the universe using uh was it Douglas Hoffman's conscious agents theory, which says that the foundations of the universe are conscious agents. And they do the math and he shows it. Comes out almost exactly the same. I'm not saying math proves everything because the numbers are kind of fudge, because I don't think we can go, well, let's best guess. I mean, people do count stars and stuff, and there's, I think, better estimations. Maybe we have some AI computer models that can count those things better, but yeah, it's interesting stuff. But you should check it out. You should check it out. It's 30 minutes of your life. And then here, atheists cannot explain the secret code seen in creation. And this is a guy who's a mathematician, and he talks about the Mandelbrot set. And the Mandelbrot set is what gives us fractals, and that's all that we. Fractals is a interesting phenomenon of patternization that continues on infinitum. So again, this helps understand better the structures of our reality mathematically, and how there is an infiniteness to it, and it's probably never going to be fully understood in any sort of external mechanical way. And then here, this is about Birkeland currents in our electric solar system. This is a video from the Thunderbolt project. These people believe in the electric universe theory. They believe the sun's a transistor. They believe everything is connected through electromagnetism, not gravity or the strong nuclear force. Primarily, they don't say that those don't exist, but the gravity is caught up in the whole space-time thing. We know right now. You go listen to some of the stuff I'm telling you to listen to, because space-time is absolutely broken. It is nothing but data and perspective, and it's not the foundations of the world. And basically, what I'm writing about is that that's the external dimensions and how we can perceive them. But there's those are 4 external dimensions for us to go through. Obviously, things as human beings are, especially internally, there's we can say things are multidimensional in an aspect, right? But to keep it simple, right? We know space time is what we operate in, or supposedly we know that. And anyways, these Birkeland currents are what cause that solar flare and stuff. And it's interesting stuff. I'm not one of those people who are going to say that the electric universe theory is correct. I don't know, but it's very interesting. It's very captivating, and it also is highly motivated off of people like Tesla that were so coveted for their grand genius, but was also crazy because he was a grand genius, and shunned. He was out marketed. He was trying to give away free energy, guys. And then finally, this is an interesting one, but it's a JRE clip, and it's Andrew Huberman on the similarities in brain chemistry between mating and aggression, which is yes, duh. And the act for males specifically to actually have sex is, an aggressive act, and it is penetration, it's stabbing, it's the names, the origins of the names, right, of the vagina is a scabbard for a sword. Very interesting, right? It tells us about ourselves, and he's a neuroscientist. He's excellent. In fact, I watch a couple videos of his almost every day. Someone I'm watching on YouTube, they pop up randomly, but I enjoy this kind of stuff, right? So you guys should check all this stuff out. And with that, we'll get to the occult. Just give me a minute to get it pulled up here. I think probably for time we won't end up watching these full videos, but we'll get a good sampling of what's in them, and we'll see.
Along the path of initiation, as you begin to the lost word.
All right, let me do one more. Actually, I think I'm gonna download this one because I think I want to end with it. So, all right. I'm probably going to complain about this every single time. Every single time I do StreamYards, because it used to be so much quicker to switch through and share things. Maybe I'm a retard and there's some setting I don't know about. Anyways, this is video advice. Ex-occultist discusses the 33rd degree knowledge and its hidden meaning. So here we're going to get into it, guys. We're going to get into what occult beliefs are and the hidden meanings. That's what occult means. It means hidden. Esoteric is also hidden knowledge. And then esoteric, of course, is what's revealed. Again, if there's any volume issues, please let me know.
At a higher level, at illuminated levels of Freemasonry, which are above 32nd degree, they will give you what the real meaning of the G inside the compass is in squares. I'm no longer an occultist. I'm a de-occultist. I'm attempting to take this information out of hiding. It's been hidden. The hiding of it is destroying the fabric of our society and putting us into bondage. It needs to come out and be non-hidden. It needs to be unveiled and shared widely and freely with anybody who's capable of accepting it and comprehending it now. That's what the New Age community is designed to do.
So he's saying the New Age community is the community that is designed to reveal these things. This is correct. This is, again, go back to Theosophy and H.P. Blavatsky and what she was doing. Manly P. Hall, what was he doing? He was revealing these things about occultism. They believe that there is this revelatory process going on. Alice A. Bailey of Lucius Trust, initially Lucifer Trust, because they are the light bearers to the world. They work with the UN folks, and you can go look that up. It's not hard to find that information. It is the religious system, the belief system of the UN. All this ties in together. And when he's saying he's a de-occultist, what he's saying is he's trying to make this knowledge free to all people so that you too can be enlightened in this new kind of age or religion that we're going into, so that we can evolve our species into the next phase, and whatever that phase is. But these people write about this and then say that there's going to be great death and horror that has to happen. Behind me here, probably can't quite see it there, but it's right there above the mic. It's H.G. Wells's New World Order. He also has another book called The Open Conspiracy. Yes, the same H.G. Wells that was a famous author, a novelist, wrote these books about how society was going to have a one world government come together, and a lot of people weren't going to like it, and a lot of people were going to have to die, and we're going to have to raise our consciousness, and yada, yada, yada. To deny that these things are not the plans of the elite and globalist of the world is, I mean, you're utterly insane. The trail that they have left behind is a mile long, and they tell you openly about these things, and then people dismiss them and don't want to believe them. And I know H.G. Wells wasn't one of the elite globalists of the world. Yeah, he was. Yeah, he was. He was talking about these ideas. And, you know, I have Edward Bernays' propaganda right there by my thumb. Here, you know what would be smarter? That'd be smarter. So that red and yellow book right there, propaganda. New World Order. Open Conspiracy right beside it. Boom. Oh, War is a Racket. That's a good one. You know, Manly P. Hall. Smedley Butler. Smedley Butler stopped a conspiracy to by globalist elites to take over the United States in a communist dictatorship. Or did he? Oh, and then behind that's Thomas More's Utopia, Nowhere Place. Yeah, it was meant to be complimentary, Holly. All right, play.
There is a moral obligation to bring this information to the public now. This next section is what I call the lost principle. This is the 8th principle of natural law, which binds all of the other principles together. It is what I would call the encapsulating principle. Okay? It's the container inside which all the other principles fit very nicely and neatly. You hear very few other researchers, even people who are studying this from the occult perspective, who are studying this from the consequentialism perspective, you very hear them incorporate the 8th and all-encompassing principle. This pattern is called something. Does anybody know what this pattern is called? The seed of life. Now, what happens from a seed? It grows. It generates something. It creates something. A seed has an outer casing, an outer shell. That if you're going to get to the inner core of it that contains all of the creative, genetic, generative material, okay, that shell has to be there and intact. You break the shell of the seed, the creative essence of the seed is going to be gone. Now, what is that principle? Here's what that principle is. It's the 8th, or what I call the lost principle. And it's the...
By the way, I didn't take my 8-dimensional man from this. Saw this afterwards. I would not try not to intermingle occultic ideas, although I do think some of the ideas, you have to understand the ideas of how men use symbols, how they have always used symbols, and what symbols mean, and even that the existence of our words, right, are symbols. Everything is in a way a symbol, and that's the difference between a sign or a symbol and a simulacra, or simulacra. Simulacra is plural. Sorry, between simulacra or simulacrum, is that the simulacra or simulacrum are a twisting in dimension of it, and it is different, and it no longer represents its original point. And Baudrillard was correct about this. I think it's a powerful idea. And it is of course part of our synthetic society. So, and we're going to be talking about that very specifically this Sunday on the Siesta stream. We'll come back to part 2 of the inner man the last man versus the inner man.
Thing that has to be present in order for any change to manifest itself. And it is not what most people think of it as. Even when I tell you what this is, I guarantee you there will be an inaccurate connotative meaning for what people think this means, okay? Here's what the eighth principle is. It is known as the generative principle, or the principle which governs creation, which actually is the causal factor that goes into effect and generates the result that we say that we want. But what's the real term for it? Who can guess what the actual term, what the generative principle of creation actually is? The generative principle is care. Now, this is different than compassion. People say, why don't you use the word compassion? Because that's not what I'm talking about. It is a different concept than compassion, or even what I would describe as love. This means, what are you giving attention and helping to grow? What are you focusing upon?
So as and the next video we'll play, you'll get the sense. It's a through line, because we're going to look at the Rosicrucians, a separate occultist organization. And what you need to understand is that these people believe that they must care for the world, right? But their methods is interesting. And he mentions dark occultist here. He talks about dark occultist. So pay attention. And if he doesn't, then it's in the other video, or it's in a video I saved that I'm not playing.
Because what you're focusing upon, that's what's ultimately getting generated.
Hey, good evening, AA and Tahari. Nice to see you guys here.
Getting created, and growing. And this doesn't mean be ignorant of what's going on in the world and don't look at anything that's negative, because you're going to feed that and give power to it. That's not what it means. That means, you know what you're feeding? In that instance, if you want to do that, you're feeding ignorance. And that's what's going to grow. It's the exact opposite that the New Agers want you to believe that it is. By ignoring the negative, you are ensuring that more of it occurs. You are fueling it by ignorance, ensuring that it grows and takes over. What care has to be looked at here as is, this is what you're giving your energy to. This is what you're focused upon. This is what you actually care enough about to do, to spend your time on, to put your attention on, to manifest in the world. That's what I'm talking about as care. That's what generates our experience in the aggregate. Most people don't care about what's really happening. Therefore, it is an impossibility for us in the aggregate to change the direction of energy, to change the direction of consciousness, and ultimately to get what we say we want. That's how the real law of attraction works.
So, and in part, he's saying what he's saying, but he's also saying, right, those people don't care. That's why they don't get what they want. That's true. But in part, as an occultist, they believe they have to teach people to care. Again, if you have certain beliefs tied up in that, maybe like climate change or something, that the earth should be quite populated, that human beings who don't care are kind of a plague or disease, then you might do some bad things if you believe that that's truly caring for humanity to get rid of those people, right?
Here's how it actually operates. The lost principle is the dynamic of care. What we care about on a day-to-day basis acts as the driving force of our thoughts and actions. What did I say we need to develop? The heart, mind, guts, right? Heart, mind, guts, in that order. Care comes first. You got to care enough to know, to develop the knowledge. Okay? Then you got to act on it and put it into practice. Apply it. So that's the order. Heart, mind, guts. Care, knowledge, action. Those are the steps. And all three of those have to be in place. All three. That's what unity consciousness is. It's unifying thoughts, emotions, and actions. The three aspects of consciousness, such that there is no contradiction between them. Our thoughts, what we say, what we think, how we feel, and how we act are one and the same. There's no contradiction. That's unity consciousness. Care is the driver of our...
That's just being an authentic person. That's all that is. But you see, this is how they're trying to achieve it. And you may say, well, Bill, this all sounds actually good. It sounds like they're trying to help people. Maybe they are, but if they have other nefarious plans, like I said, not this guy. I don't actually think this guy believes that. I mean, there are guys like Jordan Maxwell from days past. If you ever looked at Jordan Maxwell stuff, he's an occultist. He believes that these things have to happen too. He was exposing the occult for a long time, but at the same time, he believes in the occultic things that must come to pass. He believes in this age of Aquarius. He believes that this purging of man for the new evolution of man. And it's really funny how that just reoccurs, you know, with eugenicists, we look a few years back, but this is a thing, man. This is an ancient thing. Come on, man. Get with it, Jack.
Thoughts and actions. It ultimately can be seen as the generator of the quality of our shared experience here on the earth. Care is what generates the whole thing. Hence, it has been called the generative principle. Liken the heart to a pump in the body. Well, what does a pump do? It's a generator. It provides energy. It moves the life force through the blood in the body. In every ancient tradition, they talk about the life force being in the blood. The heart is what pumps that through the whole physiology and enables us to continue to sustain life. Okay? The heart is the generator. It's the pump. It's the center of the being. As important as the brain is, which we just talked about the importance of it, the heart is ultimately what's generating the experience, because what we care about determines what we think about on a daily basis most of the time, and therefore how we behave. Anybody familiar with the compasses and square symbol of Freemasonry with the G in the middle? Well, that's what the G stands for at the highest level. They'll talk about many porch masons. These are the exoteric masons that are given the teachings of the profane and they think they're in the know. Okay, they're given the information. Well, this only means geometry. It only means God, etc. Okay, one of the things they'll tell you it means at a slightly higher level is that it means gnosis, knowledge. At a higher level, at illuminated levels of Freemasonry, which are above 32nd degree, they will give you what the real meaning of the G inside the compasses and square is, and it is the generative principle. It means Genesis, creation. And yeah, you can tie that right back to God. I'm not saying those things are different. And the forms that get created in the physical manifested world are geometric forms. So it is geometry.
So they study the symbols, they study the geometric forms, they study ancient alchemy, which has these representations in it. They study everything from all the religions, more or less. The only requisite I believe that most of these organizations have is that you believe in some form of God, but it's all they call these things the mysteries, right? They're the mystery schools, and again they take their heritage all the way back to that time of Ceylon and understanding Atlantis and all that stuff. So it's interesting. To watch this stuff, and it's really interesting to see different occultists say different things, because a lot of them say they left or whatever. Ones you'll see in interviews or whatever, and it's hard to tell because it's everything's so tied together and wound up and different beliefs and perspectives, because you have to continually seek the knowledge that before it was secret, right? And then you kind of have to be finding it on your own. Sounds more and more like the Illuminati. Yeah, right. But that's the thing, is they hide this stuff. Now, from what I understand, right, is that the people they believe that are the more psychopathic, that they believe can do deviant things, they help them out, more. And you know, for the most part, like Freemasonry is just it's just a guys club where guys think that they're doing something important, and you know, it's fraternity. Um, but again, these occultic beliefs, they again, they point to something. And again, what he was saying about the new age is trying to point all this out. And my bigger point is that we it seems to be, I never believed this before until probably this point in my life, but we are moving into a new epoch of humanity. And I'm not sure what that means, but it's something.
Geometry as well. It's all these things. But at the highest level, it's the generative principle. That's what that G really stands for in esoteric Freemasonry. It's called the generative principle because that means to create. It comes from, the word generative comes from Latin. The verb generare, as we've already talked about, means to create. The
It's also the word we get a word gene from.
Through. And it's lost because people don't care. They don't have care. Hence, it's the lost principle. Okay? Here's how it works, folks. What we care enough to put our will behind. So again, heart, mind, guts. Guts is the will, the action, the masculine principle. That's what gets things done ultimately in the physical domain. What we care enough to put our will behind. And that's driven by the care. That's the generator or the pump that drives the will. What we care enough to put our...
I bet he was, Holly, what I know about your dad. That makes more sense.
Will behind is ultimately what gets created or manifested in our world. The world is the way that it is because most people do not care enough, even if they say, they pay lip service, okay, and say that they want things to be different. They don't care enough to actually change it through their actions. What it comes down to is preventing action. Preventing action. That's what the New Age community is designed to do. They want people inactive because the dark occultists know that the thing that is ultimately generating our reality is behavior. Action is what's generating the reality.
See, like I said, there's stuff there. This is true. But see where he said the dark occultists, and he's pointing to, you know, some Christian pastors that don't represent Christ in any way. But he's talking about other people as well. You should understand that this is, I don't know. This is again, these beliefs can be taken in different ways. I'll put it that way. Some people believe they have to do good, and some people believe that the good that they have to do is bad stuff to everybody else on earth in order to achieve the nowhere place, right?
That gets generated through what we care about because our cares and our desires drive our actions. So most people will say they want things to change, but then when you say, what are you doing to make that change happen? Not a word. Silence comes back on the other end.
Or, you know, they're just like the last man. They're just addicted to their comfort, their ease, all that good stuff. Let's watch this one on the Rosicrucians real quick. So this is from Video Advice again. He's got a lot of videos like this that's pretty good. Let's see who Mark Passio. Yeah, so he's got his own channel. And I'm going to talk about some things with the Rosicrucians here because this guy says stuff. No, wait, that's not what I wanted to do. This guy says stuff. But you know, I got this book right here, and there's a passage here, but you hear what how the Rosicrucian talks, and it's the same thing. They're coming from where they believe is a good place, you know. Pretty sure. Yep, same channel. He's got a lot of these. There's a good one on the. I have. On the CIA and experiments they've done with using sound and certain technologies to alter consciousness. Of course, you guys know if you can do like binary beats, right, and it'll change your brain waves. Yeah, yeah. And TV can be set at certain wavelengths to do that too. It's because we operate like some sort of giant receptor, and I do think that electromagnetic waves is probably more effective. It explains a lot more in the universe than gravity, which seemingly is super weak force, right? But whatever. It seems though that the collective unconscious is very real. It seems like I've had synchronistic experiences before, as Carl Jung puts them, synchronicity, where you think of somebody and then they call you on the phone, that kind of thing, or you keep thinking about something, or you keep seeing, you literally have a thought in your mind, and say it's like first thing in the morning, and then you go out and the thing that you thought about reoccurs, reappears, manifests itself in front of you repeatedly, and you're like, well, that's weird, because I hadn't thought about that thing in forever, and all of a sudden I'm seeing it 6 times. Well, they would tell you, the scientists, is, well, that's just because you became aware of it and now you're seeing it everywhere, right? Maybe. And that's the thing with synchronicity. It's hard to tell, but man, there's sometimes it's nearly impossible to, like, I haven't talked to a friend in 6 months, and then I was like thinking about them, and then all of a sudden they give me a phone call 10 minutes later. And that's happened plenty of times, So, yeah. Anyways, let's play the video.
Understand processes other people don't understand, that can be the temptation to use that knowledge to manipulate other people, or to manipulate all types of things. Let's say you understand psychology and somebody else doesn't. You can manipulate them with all types of things in neurolinguistic programming and things of that kind. What words do you use? What tonality do you use? How do you present the information? You can manipulate them all over the place. And so in Rosicrucianism, there's a very strong rule that all the powers and understandings gained on the path will be put to the service of other people. And so that's like the first rule in Rosicrucianism. Otherwise, as you develop the abilities, you will get that temptation of, well, I could get what I want right now because they don't understand.
So you see how this goes back to that idea of the generative principle of care, right? They can only do good and care for other people. Again, sounds very benevolent. Sounds quite nice. But again, and I don't necessarily think the Rosicrucians are the worst people, but I do know that there is what is it, the 75th? Let me type this in real quick. It's like the 75th or 76. 76. I'll probably type that. Invocation of the Order of the Rose and Cross. I think I have a full printout of this book somewhere, but Rosicrucian Order, yada. Report of the 78th Convocation. I was close. I think this is it. Yes, it is. Fundamental Laws. Oh, yeah. Yeah. We're going to let this play, and then I'm going to show you something.
Understand this process, but I do.
Just the smooth sounds of my voice, Holly. Just the smooth sounds of my voice.
There are many different spiritual systems in the world that have different types of initiation programs that a person goes through. And the Rosicrucian system is one that's been very influential in the West, but actually it's sometimes hard to get information about what their actual system of development is. What do we actually mean by initiation or an initiate? because the terms are used very generally in modern metaphysical circles. But if you look at people that are being presented as initiates, they're often extremely different. One technical part of this is actually the structure of their consciousness and the structure of their subtle bodies can be quite different from one to another, although they're being presented as initiates within different systems. There are 3 different aspects of initiation or becoming an initiate. In one of these, what is actually being illuminated begins with the thinking process, with actually knowing about non-physical realities, knowing about the greater spiritual realities that we come from, and the spiritual depths of oneself. This is linked to the spiritual centers inside the head. And this is also linked to the illumination of the thinking process, so that with this process, we actually know consciously the structure of the spiritual worlds, how we interact with them, how they influence us on a daily basis. And within this Rosicrucian system, that would technically be known as an initiate.
So what you're looking at here is the Setharoth, which comes from the Jewish mystical belief system of Kabbalah, and Kabbalah is in all of the occult. So the symbolism of it, and in part the structures, and a lot of this is actually what the early Christian Gnostics believed, at least according to Irenaeus, because he describes their systems of the various their various gods and structures and how they gave birth to the universe and the Pelora and all that stuff. So I don't have that in front of me. So it's a lot of stuff to remember to run off my mouth about, but yeah. But that's what you're looking at. And the Setharoth is basically the embodiment of God as the foundations of the universe, and it's taken in different ways. I'll put it that way. But yeah, it's a very old symbol.
Someone that actually understands the systems. In this path of illumination, we find that everything is a thought form from the mind of God. And all those thought forms have a pattern to them. And the current term that we use for understanding those patterns is sacred geometry. So sacred geometry is a universal science for understanding.
Sacred geometry, again, go to any occult organization, don't care which one it is in there.
The patterns of creation at every level. And so no matter what tradition you study with.
And it's also in the New Age. And it actually relates back to the Mandelbrot set as well. But yeah, that's another topic. I need to get out of here soon, so keep going.
They will work with sacred geometry, because the sacred geometry at the highest level is a pure packed thought form from the mind of God that shows you the pure pattern of everything that's manifested from it. Now, the next level is that of the clairvoyant. And from one perspective, we could say this is linked to the illumination of the heart and the feeling life. The Rosicrucians talk about a process within an initiation in which at a certain point, when the heart becomes open and unarmored, and we cultivate this feeling of unconditional love, there is an ignition of a kind of spiritual spark within the heart. And what happens then is that they describe it as an etheric rose light arises from the heart and moves up to what's commonly called the third eye center.
So now this ties back to what's in the East, in the chakras, and the Kundalini. They all tie together. And again, these beliefs are ancient, folks. You start studying them in the symbols, they all point back to a common belief centers, common origin point, and an understanding of how human beings work on a deeper level. And I'm not trying to sit here and promote mysticism and all that kind of stuff. I'm just telling you that there are some things that are true and right about this and how man has perceived his reality. The difference is the mystery schools believe that they can enlighten you to the point of some sort of godhood. And I don't believe that at all. And if that is true, that is only capable of those who can achieve full gnosis. And if that is true, then it's only capable by those who have the IQ to do it, which leaves a lot of freaking people out, or the will to do it, or the discipline to do it. And it's how these mystic systems work. And basically, generally, what all they really do is they build up fraternal networks, and they tend to have, especially in Indian mystic systems, and when you get gurus, you tend to have somebody who's treated like a god, right? It's always how it goes. You get the cult of personality. You get that one person who gets to be the center of attention to everybody and gets to be worshipped, and gets to sleep with all the women too, you know. And you would be lucky to sleep with him because he's the best lover ever. You know, it all comes back to these same basic patterns. And I think that's the thing for me in life, is not actually that complicated. And I can take very complex things and just whittle them back down. And again, I don't want to be overly reductive about things, but first principles really are everything. And, you know, most people don't hold to any sort of first principles. Just like somebody was, I don't know, said something on Twitter the other week, and to me, and about if if Marxism is about, you know, making everyone distributing the wealth equally, or having a classless society, is race Marxism, you know, something about having a raceless society. And I was like, I reject your straw man outright, or something. And he's like, how's that a straw man? And I said, on first principles, it's a straw man, because I don't believe in your nowhere place. And I don't think that there'll ever be a classless society. I don't think that there'll ever be a raceless society. That's silly to me. It's not how things work. But yeah, I don't know. Anyways, let's play the video. Yeah, Waco, Jim Jones, exactly.
And with that rose etheric stream, it enters into the centers in the head, that area that is technically at the third ventricle of the brain, and was known as the cave of Brahma in the Indian teachings. This is a particular area that's open in the head that has a space between the pineal and pituitary glands.
Yeah, so your cerebral spinal fluid can flush while you sleep, which, by the way, does not work so effectively when you sleep on your back. You should sleep on your side to get that done efficiently. You'll be more rested. If that's one of the primary reasons that you need sleep, at least physiologically, and that gets all of the debris, all the dead things that have been up there out, and cleanses your mind, then you get a fresh, new cerebral spinal fluid flush up there, and man, you're good to go. Good to go.
And as this space becomes illuminated, it leads to direct spiritual vision. So the third aspect here is that there's also the cultivation of action, or of the will. And this is linked to the belly, or what in Japan they call the hara, or in Chinese alchemy they call the lower dantian, the lower will centers here. And through the action, or willing.
Now, I want you to recall that in Plato's Republic, there are the people of the mind who are the upper class elites, the people of the heart who are they're the passionate artists and you know, mercantile class, if you would, and they're brave, and they're the firefighters and the policemen. Of course, there weren't such things in their times, but you know what I mean. They were men of courage. And then there are the people of the belly, who were the dregs of society, basically, and just purely led by lower passions, right? They're the herd. Do you see how these echoes keep occurring?
Form of illumination. One is able to take action esoterically. You're able to actually use non-physical realities to change things on the physical plane. Now, at the most extreme form of this, we have things like actual physical alchemy, and the transmutation of one physical substance to another. But this is usually attained after going through multiple steps of being able to transform something that is less dense. And that is normally etheric energy fields. So the actual vibrational transformation of energy fields, energy healing, things of that kind, is something that you find very strongly on this path. So the person that can actually transform things using spiritual forces is referred to as the adept. That gives us a bit of an overview for how this fits together. Within the Rosicrucian work, you find at a certain point that the consciousness body of the human being has 3 centers that can be worked on and awakened. And those 3 centers are around the head, the heart, and the hara. And this is really
I'm telling you guys, the mysteries, they're all the same.
universal teaching. If you study with the Buddhist, they'll talk about the thought, speech, and action.
Princess, uh-oh.
If you study with Sufis, they'll talk about the head, the heart, and the hands. All these different traditions are working with the same concept. If you studied Chinese medicine or Chinese internal alchemy like Qigong, you'll know that they have the upper, middle, and lower Dantian. They refer to these as elixir fields, because when we understand what these actually are energetically, they are a kind of spiritual elixir field that we can work in and illuminate the forces of.
Now, I have done some Qigong, and I've done some Tai Chi in my day, and I've done Russian martial arts. And I am, because of that, because Russian martial arts are have a very mathematical root, not the actual traditional martial arts that are integrated, but the original systems that were created were supposed to be very scientific. The one guy who invented them, his name's escaping. It sounds it's Kadaj. It's not Kalashnikov, because that's the AK guy. It's Kadajnikov, I believe, and then later on, General Rotensky turned his system into an actual more effective system because he allowed sport style training in it. Because the sportive training is what prepares you for actual combat to some degree. Although the problem in the end with sportive training is it removes certain things and puts certain rules in place. So I watched a video the other day. It was actually really good about how there are only 3 methods of fighting, and that's basically striking, standing, grappling, and then wrestling on the ground. Or grappling, people phrase them different ways, but standing, grappling is clenching and throwing, that kind of stuff. Wrestling on the ground, he's like, those are the only ways you can engage people. And I was like, nope, that's not true. And he's like, in unarmed combat. And I'm like, nope, that's not true. So if the chat may ponder how else you can engage somebody, you can spit on them, you can bite them, you can gouge them, you can pinch them. There are a lot of things that you can do that don't involve necessarily grappling or striking in combat as a human being. But I've trained a lot of nasty stuff my whole life. I mean, studied about samurai jujitsu. I think on Yez's show I mentioned it. I don't even know. Was it there? I don't know where I mentioned this at. I mentioned samurai jujitsu because people think that it's what Brazilian jiu-jitsu is, and it's like, no. I probably did it on this show the other week. It was like, it was meant to break your arm like in a second, or your wrist. They didn't care. Most of the holds that we use today in the UFC would never work. You can't mount somebody when they have a knife on them. They stab you on the side immediately. You don't do that. That's why there's side control. You throw a guy, you do like a head and arm throw, you control him, or you do something like wakigatami. Lovely technique. I love it. It totally banned in judo because people's elbows get dislocated left and right. But you do something like wakigatami and you get that weapon out of that guy's hand and then you drag him to the ground. It doesn't need to look pretty. There are techniques, but all the stuff, you can see it in the sport, is sometimes quite sloppy. And in any case, I don't even know where I started with that. I don't know why I got off on that tangent there. You're saying about the spiritual energies and all that kind of stuff. I was thinking about Tai Chi and all that. That's where I got into all that. Anyways, sorry guys. Tai Chi, in my opinion, is simply building tendon strength and learning proper alignment and breathing. And when you do that, and you have true proper alignment, you have skeletal alignment, you can do things that are seemingly weird and impossible. the reason why Tai Chi or Qigong type stuff, or Pakwe or Bagwe, don't work. The internal martial arts don't work as martial arts is because you don't have that sport of competition of actually pressure testing of fighting. But they do work, and the Russian martial arts have aspects of that, uh, and and it's that you have to pressure it. I had an old mentor that used to beat the snot out of me all the time. And I love the guy, don't get me wrong, but like, man, he's a brutal fighter, and he'll play with you, man, smack your arms and stuff, and just take the fight out of you, just make you miserable. And he used to, always throw me around, and we flowed together really good though. And we love sparring together. And man, I was doing Russian martial arts for just a couple of years, and training on my own, driving down to Gaithersburg to do it, going to seminars, doing this and that. And I got so good. Like he's a big dude, he's like 6'1" or something, and like 210 pounds, and he's all muscle. He's a he's a big hairy Chilean man. And he's got these like dense muscles and stuff that, does labor and does crazy stuff at the gym, likes to dance. So this guy can flow, he can fight, and he's brutal, man. And I remember we started sparring, hadn't seen him in some years. I started throwing him around. He would try to get me because he would do stuff like in the clinch where he try basically throw me around. And I learned to literally redirect his force and like push him across the room and stuff. It was amazing. It was amazing. Could never do that stuff to him before. So that's your internal martial arts, guys. I did a lot of breath work actually. Russian martial arts has a lot of breath work in it. Did a lot of structural alignment stuff. They did a lot of other stuff. The thing is I have real world fighting experience and real scenarios, and I have years and years of training of various kinds and hard training. Not the hardest, but definitely hard training. I've got lots of wrestling around with my buddies too. So you get all of that, and then you can actually apply the internal martial art. But most people start the wrong way. They start with the internal martial art first, and then it just doesn't work. Anyways, guys, you'll have to watch the rest of that video some other time. I had another one I was thinking about playing that again we'll show you. I'll just pull it up for you so you can see it. It is this video here from Daily Motivation, a higher state of consciousness that has been largely lost. Again, this is from occultists talking about their belief systems and things. If you want to check that out, I'm not going to play it for the show because I just don't have the time. I need to get out of here. I've been streaming for 2 hours. That's kind of the way it goes. But I hope you guys had fun. If you didn't show up here earlier, right, make sure, if you want to keep catching me, that you go over to the Rumble that is linked in the description and subscribe there so that I can get that not only account growing, but also that if I can't stream here because of YouTube and their shenanigans, I can continue to stream. And that's important too, so that if I switch off, if I want to talk about certain subjects, I can do that. So very important. I do want to leave you guys with this really great video from after school. And oh wait, I got to show you one more thing. I forgot. I was going to do this. I'll show you about the Rosicrucians. So this is the 68th convocation of the Order of the Rose and Cross, and it's called Fundamental Law, and it talks about some other things. And here's see a picture of it, written in 1916, Philosophical Publishing Company in Allentown, PA. And what this book talks about is reunifying North America as the old Atlantis. That is Canada, North America, and Mexico. Canada, North America, Canada and the United States and Mexico as one nation. And of course, what do you see here? The reverse side of the seal uncut. Nothing to see there, though. Nothing to see there. Anyways, you can find that. Google Books and read it. I read it some odd years ago. Again, I became aware of it because of Bill Cooper. So, and he was a great resource for me learning a lot of this stuff. So, anyways, I want to leave you guys with this video from after school. I thought it was really good. And it's Tim Dillon talking about what people are searching for in life and how they're misguided and what they're searching for. So here we go.
People want to be fulfilled.
They see, you know,
Don't go down that road, folks. It's a bad road.
it's a bad road.
It's a dark road.
Yeah.
Fulfillment. I'm telling you right now, the happiness road, there's a lot of bodies in the wake.
Mhm.
I'm obviously kidding, but I'm half serious. I think people glorify that word, happiness. They glorify it. They don't really know what it means.
Mhm.
Like fulfillment and happiness are not the same. Success and happiness are obviously not the same, right?
Mhm.
Being in love doesn't necessarily make you happy. It's a beautiful thing. But a lot of people are in love the way they're on drugs.
Mhm.
So, you know, you meet them, they're frantic, they're fighting. You know, some of the best relationships I've ever witnessed, and I mean best in the sense that they probably have the best sex, but half of the relationship, they hate each other. And they're on the phones with each other, and the cops were at the apartment. It's not necessarily, love isn't necessarily equated with happiness, you know? Financial well-being is certainly not equated with happiness. Happiness is really a thing you can choose to do and be, and it's worthwhile. But I do think people glorify that word. I just want to be happy. Okay, what does that mean? I just want to be happy, man. Okay. See, the problem is we've sold people on a bill of goods. We've told them all that they all have dreams or a vision, and that the only thing missing is execution. This is the lie. The lie. One of the big lies is that it's all inside of them. The only thing they're missing is the plan. That's the big lie. Yeah. It's one of the big lies we tell. Because people make a lot of money telling that lie, and I get it.
They make a lot of money telling that lie. A lot of money.
And it's true for a few people. So the people that are telling the lie aren't lying to everyone. But the big lie is that it's in you. It lives in you, the thing. What? Well, they get, it's pretty vague. They leave that out. But the thing, the business, the thing you want, the empire, all of it, the product, the service, it's in you.
There's a concept of the fortune favoring the wise, right? And yeah, just keep listening.
You got it. You want it. Do I? You do. Do I want it? You do want it. And the only thing missing is execute. The only reason that you're not further is you're lazy. You're just a fatty boom batty. You're just eating breadsticks instead of doing it. What's it? Shh. It's in you. The money's in you. You're a piñata, but you don't know how to get into the inner core of yourself where all that money lives. You just need people to beat you with sticks in a backyard, and then the change comes out because it lives in you. So if you have that thing where you go, oh, it's in me. It's in me. We've told everyone in this country that they're entrepreneurs, stars, athletes, thinkers, journalists. We've told everybody. Warriors. You're a warrior. We've told everyone that they are all things at all times, no matter what. We've told them that nothing really matters, not their character, not their track record, their work ethic, their ability, their intelligence, their IQ. Nothing really, truly matters except execution. Hustle it up. It's the only reason. We said geography doesn't matter. Nothing matters.
What he's saying is all true. This is the message. I'm not giving this message. I address the geography issue. I address the IQ issue. I address the individual motivation issue. I address all of these things because that's the truth. And we need to understand this. We're not all equal. And because of that, we need to understand that we need to help each other out. Right. And it shouldn't be because I'm superior to you in maybe some sort of book knowledge, right? Or my ability to reason and think and whatever. But you're just your ability to be a mechanic is like 1,000 times better than mine. I actually had a buddy from work exactly like that. He hated trying to use the computer and stuff. And he was like, "Man, I'm all smart like you did." And I'm like, "Man, you're like probably one of the smartest guys I know when it comes to vehicles. When it comes to cars, you take anything apart." I said, "You know, you weld, you know plumbing, you do all these things, man." It's like, I don't do all those things. It's not like I can't do them. I don't have any drive to do them, really. I'd rather just hire somebody most of the time. I mean, um, it's a different thing, right? Different personality, different strokes for different folks. So let's keep listening.
Where you born, who you were born into, crackhead burning you with cigarettes in a closet, that doesn't matter. Shimmy on down to LA, be a star. And a few people will do that. And then a lot of people won't. But it's a glorification of the self. And what's interesting is the people that are the most successful are actually not the happiest. Why? Well, why? That doesn't make any sense. Well, it's almost like happiness might come from a community or family or social commitments to others. No, what? Hold on. Fuck. You're melting my head. Yeah, so actually the most famous and rich people, they're like not the happiest. Well, then the people that are happy live like a lot of times. When are people the happiest? I'll tell you that when I've observed people the happiest, they're kind of the happiest when they're like planning an event for other people and they're telling you how happy people are at the event and how happy they do, whether it's in a small town or something like, people really derive a sense of pride and joy and happiness from, getting people together and building something that potentially will outlast them, tradition. Something that people can really look forward to and enjoy, and it represents something. And a lot of times you see this, in the simplest form with a family.
You know how much joy and life my 13-month-old daughter has brought to us for the last 13 months. I mean, the motivation, and they will tell you this generally. Any good parent will tell you that there's a drive to do better for your child, and we know that men actually tend to work harder when they have children, go out and make more money. There's and some people would say, well, it's because children cost a lot. Not really. I mean, we give her baby food, but she just eats what we eat, and she breastfeeds still. But she gets a little bit of extra food, like she eats mostly salt. I wouldn't really do baby food. She's almost got 8 teeth in. The ones just popped through. So that's her first, 4 on top and bottom. But yeah, it's pretty strange how much joy she brings. I even said yesterday, I told my wife, I told my daughter, who will be 18 next month, I was like, man, I missed having a baby around. I love it. I absolutely love it. It's hard work because I'm 41 and and she gets to everything. She's a walker. She's been a walker since 9 months. She's running around like she's wild, but she is so much fun. Anyways,
planning where the cradle and the crib is going to go and everything, and even in a larger, maybe it's a festival every year that a town does that people really get into, or whether it's a big sporting event or game or whatever it is, people tend to be happy when they have social commitments to other people and things. It makes them feel like they're part of something bigger and larger than themselves.
yeah. And he goes on. This is on after school. I'm going to cut it for the sake of my family there. But, this is the opposite of what the synthetic society presents to you, right? They encourage anti-social media. They encourage the separation. They want to destroy the family. They want to control you. And, it's quite interesting, all of the hidden things. I have an imperative from God, a directive, straight from Paul the Apostle's mouth, that we are to expose all things in darkness. And maybe I'm off base, maybe I'm wrong, but that's for you to decide. I'm just here to say what I believe is true and right and just and all those good things. And with that, guys, I'm going to bid you adieu. I'm going to get out of here because, like I said, I can hear my little girl screaming downstairs, having a ton of joy. And I'm going to go participate in that because those are the things that make me happy. And I hope you guys have had a happy, TV Turkey Tuesday with me because, I like to be able to do interesting shows like this quite often. And it does tie into all the things that I've been talking about. Well, thank you. Thank you, AA. Whoop. I didn't mean to put Spook's comment up there. Anyways, guys. So with that, I'm not going to play the outro today because I got to let that play and then cut the stream off, or the intro that I usually play at the end. I'm just going to leave you guys to it, get out of here. So, hey, this has been All Minus One. My name is Bill, and I wish you all well. See ya.